How different is Daredevil from comics to screen?
I don't know.
Matthew Murdock, aka Daredevil, has appeared in thousands of Marvel comics, so there's a significant amount of lore surrounding this character. On screen, we've seen the character be notably played by Ben Affleck, and currently the very Marvel named Charlie Cox in the MCU. So let's find out how different the character is in the comics to those appearances on screen. Matt Murdock made his first appearance in 1964's Daredevil issue 1, written by Stan Lee and illustrated by Bill Everett. In the issue, a crime gang's game of cards is interrupted by a masked vigilante known as Daredevil looking for their boss, the Fixer. Refusing to give up any information, they attack Daredevil, who fights back. As this happens, the comic flashes back to a young Matthew Michael Murdock who has an extremely Marvel name, like Peter Parker, Sue Storm, and of course, J. Jonah, Jimmy, Jason, Jackson, Jordan, Jasmine, Julian, Joseph, and Jessica Jameson, a junior. Matt is the son of a boxer, Jack, who doesn't want him to follow in his footsteps, instead encouraging him to get a good education. However, due to Matt being bullied, he learns to fight in secret so he can use the skills for self-defense. Unfortunately, it's not self-defense against a truck, as he gets struck by one when trying to save a person who is blind and deaf crossing the road. The chemicals from the Ajax Atomic Lab radioactive material truck spills into Matt's eyes, blinding him. However, despite being unable to see through his eyes, the radioactivity increases his other four senses, allowing him to see through hearing, smelling, touching, and tasting. He uses this ability to continue training in self-defense over the years before eventually attending law school, where he meets and becomes friends with Foggy Nelson. Because Matt's father was struggling financially, he agreed to sign with a dodgy fighting promoter, the Fixer, who orders him to lose a fight. However, when Jack notices his son in attendance, he remembers the values he taught Matt as a kid to always do your best, so goes against the Fixer's orders and wins the match, leading to the dodgy promoter having Jack killed. After Matt and Foggy graduate school, they open their own law firm, hiring a secretary named Karen Page. But that's not the only thing Matt wants to do with his life. He also wants to avenge his father's death by using his fighting skills, and apparently sewing skills, to create the masked persona of Daredevil. Daredevil uses his razor-sharp senses to track the Fixer and chases him down until the crime boss falls and dies from a heart attack. Daredevil helps the police capture the rest of the Fixer's crew before returning to work, where his colleagues show concern as to his whereabouts for the previous days. So if you've seen the 2003 Daredevil movie, or Daredevil series that started in 2015, you'll know there's a lot of similarities from the comics to the on-screen origins. Both Ben and Charlie's on-screen origins included Matt's dad being a boxer who's killed for refusing to rig a fight, but on screen this occurs when Matt is younger, rather than when he was in uni. Matt's eyes were exposed to chemicals at a young age, blinding his eyes but heightening his other senses. However, while Charlie's version saw him push another person out of the way to be affected by toxic exposed by the truck like in the comics, Ben's version had him witness his dad trying to extort money from mob boss Eddie Fallon at a chemical warehouse. Matt ran away, only to get in the way of a forklift, piercing a toxic barrel, washing into his eyes. Matt and Foggy have a law firm together, where the series also shows the pair attending college together, and Karen is their secretary, though the circumstances of that coming about is different in Cox's version, employing her after being framed for her previous boss's murder. On the big and small screen, Matt trained to become Daredevil, seeking revenge for his father's death, like the comics. Jack didn't want his son to become a fighter, and the Netflix series reinforced his idea that he needs to focus on education so Matt doesn't end up like him. Affleck's version also showed him defending himself against bullies at a young age, like the comics. As for the rest of Matt Murdock's origin, because Jack Murdock died just before Matt graduated college, he didn't require a guardian in the comics. However, in the 2003 movie, the place where he stayed after his father's death was skipped over, while the Daredevil show explained that he lived at St. Agnes Orphanage. His martial arts training was taken up to a new level thanks to the help from Ninja Master Stick, teaching him how to control his heightened senses as someone who is also blind. This is also something not shown in the movie, although Stick does appear in that film's spin-off, Elektra.
Stick, you manipulated me.
Did I?
Like most great characters, Matt Murdock has a complex personality. Because Matt's father wanted him to be more successful than he, Jack made sure study was a strong focus on his son's life. For this reason, Matt ended up being very academically intelligent, earning a law degree at Columbia University, as seen in the comics and series, and becoming a really good lawyer. But despite this intelligence and ability to articulate, according to Kristen McDuffie, he has the punctuation and spelling skills of someone who was dropped on their head at an early age. Matt uses his lawyering skills to serve clients who are morally just, people with financial issues, or those who would allow Matt to be closer with even more dangerous criminals. Page on screen has also shown him to be against killing, but like most other superheroes, he has done so accidentally and will sometimes end lives when absolutely necessary to save others. Or when he just can't be bothered saving the criminal. This, however, does not exempt his enemies from receiving significant pain during the battles Daredevil has against them. And this frustration is something he's always had, from feeling helpless after losing his eyesight, to seeking revenge after his father's death. He's had to remember his values to prevent losing control. We also see his selfless side, risking his life to save others. In the comics and show, the reason for him getting his powers is because of a selfless act, saving someone else. Growing into the person Matt has become, you can see why he's referred to as the man without fear. Though despite this title, Matt's life has led him to be diagnosed with clinical depression in the comics, and in the series, he's known for pushing people away, refusing to seek help. He does, however, seek guidance from the Catholic Church, being a devoted Roman Catholic on page and screen. While some characters in the comics have expressed their belief of a certain religion, Matt Murdock is probably the one where his religious belief intrinsically links to the character. He not only uses the church for confessions and guidance, but also uses it as a safe house for himself, his clients, and those close to him. While some of those people close to him know he's Daredevil, many don't, and he's probably second only to the different Spider variants who tries to keep his identity a secret more than others. Having said this, characters like Foggy, the very Marvel named Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Danny Rand, Wilson Fisk, Elektra, and Stick are just some of the characters who know his secret on page and screen. Even when his identity was leaked, he's found ways to convince people otherwise, including in the comics when he wore a shirt that literally says, "I'm not Daredevil." And because of this dual identity, he's shown to have multiple personalities for each, even taking on the fictional persona of the very Marvel named Michael Murdock, Matt's twin brother. Magic even brings Mike to life at one point in the comics. A humorous side to Matt in Daredevil is occasionally seen, but as Daredevil, he's more known to be dark and brooding, and as a lawyer, he's more straight up and down. But Matt actually feels more comfortable being Daredevil than Matt, something clearly shown in the comics and show. The books have even noted that he feels like he's suffocating while wearing business clothes. Something else worth mentioning is that Matt knows how to play the piano, which is something we also see him doing in the Defender series, and in the movie, he kinda plays the organ. Now what's Daredevil's connection to other characters? Romantically, Elektra is the only love interest that exists across comics, movie, and series, who in the comics he first met at college, then later in life met back up when she was an assassin. Kinda like the show. Both Page and Screen has shown this complicated relationship, from their on and off romantic involvement to teaming up as vigilantes, to Matt having to pull himself away from her when she crosses morally grey areas. Stick even married the pair in the comics, until recently separating. Someone else Matt has been married and separated with is Mila Donovan, who is also blind. She's someone who Matt once saved, but Murdock's mental breakdown led to an annulment shortly after their marriage. This, however, is a comic exclusive character. Another Screen and Page romance is Page, specifically Karen Page, though this isn't something seen in the movie. The character does exist in Affleck's universe, but their connection doesn't progress further than being Nelson and Murdock's secretary. In the comics and show, Karen was friends with Matt, romantic with Matt, and in the books, she's also been dead to Matt. Well, dead to everyone. She dies. Bullseye kills her. During this on-screen Daredevil and Bullseye fight in the church, I thought Karen was going to die, because how she dies in the comics had a similar environment and situation. Other comic exclusive romances include, but not limited to, Natasha Romanoff, Heather Glenn, who he was engaged to, and a bookstore owner named Mindy Libris. And a romance exclusive to Screen is Matt and Jen Walters, as seen in She-Hulk Attorney at Law. But on Page and Screen, they have lawyered against each other. I've spoken in detail about Matt's father, but in later comics we see him be abusive to his son, and an alcoholic in the series. As for his mother, Maggie, the comics and shows depicted her as a nun, where she left Matt due to postpartum depression, feeling she couldn't trust herself to be around Matt or Jack. Like the show, her appearance is very limited in the comics, but Matt later found and learnt the truth about her. Franklin Foggy Nelson's complex relationship with Matt is another relatively accurate portrayal from Page to Screen, though when he ran for district attorney in the books, he actually got the gig, as opposed to in the series, where he dropped out. Ben Urich's portrayal as a journalist that works closely with Daredevil to inform the world about crime is something that's translated in a similar way from the comics to the different on-screen iterations. Matt's disagreement with the Punisher, but occasionally working together for the greater good, is also something that's relatively accurately portrayed, though Affleck never had to deal with him. I mentioned that Matt's Catholic religion was significant to him, where William Everett is the priest he often confides to in the movie, Paul Lantham is the priest in the series, and in the comics, it's neither of them, but Father Cathal did have an involvement in his life over the years. Claire Temple seemed to only be introduced in the Daredevil show as a way to bridge the gap between he and the other Defenders, because she has almost no connection with him in the comics, as opposed to being a major supporting character in all the Netflix shows. Speaking of the Defenders, Daredevil does have close connections with all those members individually, but Matt didn't first join the Defenders in the comics until after the series was in development. While more known to be a solo act, he's also been on different Avengers teams in the comics, a team that Peter Parker's Spider-Man was also a part of, someone Daredevil has teamed up with on a number of occasions, even being his lawyer in Spider-Man No Way Home. He's also been the lawyer to a number of heroes in the comics, including the Fantastic Four. Someone else he's represented on screen is Luke Jacobson, who designed his yellow and red suit, but this doesn't happen in the comics. That specific design was actually sewn together by Murdock himself. A costume designer who Matt has been involved with on both page and screen is Melvin Potter. I don't think he ever created a suit for Daredevil in the comics, but Matt did help him become a reformed person. Melvin does own a costume shop, and he has repaired suits for other heroes before. He did, however, create a Daredevil suit for Kingpin to give to a criminal, like in the series. As for those notable criminals, the Leapfrog first appeared in a Daredevil comic and She-Hulk show. Bullseye and Wilson Fisk appear in all three mediums, who both share a lot of on-screen characteristics and connections to Daredevil as to what they do on page, including Bullseye working for Fisk and pretending to be Daredevil. Though Bullseye's actual name in the comics is Lester, the movie doesn't reveal his name, and in the show it's Benjamin Poindexter, which was taken from the Ultimate Universe. Maya Lopez has also fought Daredevil on page and screen under Kingpin's command, but we are yet to see that connection between them evolve to working together in any movie or show.
I beat you!
Physically speaking, Matt Murdock is known for having red hair in the comics, which was also given to him in the movie, but not the series. Speaking of red, he also has red glasses and a red suit, which is probably the most notable costume, as seen in both the movie and series, but he was first seen in a yellow and red design, which was worn in She-Hulk Attorney at Law. However, Charlie Cox's suits have never had the iconic double Ds. The comics have also had a black suit during the Shadowland event, but that isn't the same as what's seen in Charlie Cox's first season. That costume design seems to be inspired by the Man Without Fear run. As for his powers, I've commented on how Matt's other senses heightened when exposed to the chemicals, but his touch improved his balance, he can smell people from a large distance, making him a great tracker, he can taste every ingredient in a dish, and he can hear heartbeats to tell if someone is lying. Stan Lee has even said that Daredevil's radar sense is better than Spider-Man's spider sense. But I mean, Clint Barton could defeat Superman. It all depends on the writer's interpretation and story. However, these extreme senses cause sensory overload, so the show addresses this by sleeping in silk sheets to avoid discomfort of a low thread count, and in the movie he sleeps in a sensory deprivation tank to drown out the city's noises. His senses can also be impaired with things like excessive noise, tremendous pain, or being underwater. On top of all those powers he gained from the chemicals, on both page and screen, Matt trained his body to peak physical condition and is skillful in martial arts. And all of this is accompanied with a billy club, that's often been doubled as Matt's walking stick. Matt Murdock isn't the only Marvel Prime character who's taken on the Daredevil name. So has Danny Rand when Matt was in prison, Elektra when he was in prison a different time, T'Challa and Peter Parker wore the suit, as did Bullseye, who impersonated Matt for devious doings, which he also did in the series.
Who are you? I'm Daredevil.
Prime Marvel Matt Murdock might be the universe with the character's most appearances, but other notable Daredevils across the comic universes include Mattia Murdock, who's a drummer for the Spider Band, there's a version who's a hitman for Kingpin, Earth 666's version is an actual devil, he's been different animals like Dare Gorilla, Bear Devil, and Bat Murdock's Deer Devil. Matt Murdock of Earth 21011 threatened to sue anyone who illegally downloaded a Marvel movie. He's been a blood-drinking vampire, brain-eating zombie, and everyone, including Matt, became cannibals on Earth 11080. On Earth 6001, Hulkpool travelled back in time and saved Matt from getting exposed to toxic chemicals. The Advocate is a Matthew Murdock who killed all the people taking place in the running of the Bulls and saved the Bulls. Earth 71912's Matt is a baby Daredevil, like all the other characters in that universe. On Earth 82588, Daredevil could see, so ran away when he saw how dangerous his rogues gallery looked. There's a version where he's a herald to Galactus, but this Galactus is a food blogger, and Matt was the keeper of his passwords. What if issue 73 saw Daredevil team up with Kingpin to avenge the death of his father? In the same universe as Spider-Man Noir, Daredevil Noir and Foggy are detectives instead of lawyers. Instead of being exposed to toxic chemicals, Daredevil was hit with a radioactive Ray Charles record, losing his eyesight but giving him a beautiful singing voice. There's a reality where Daredevil is a piece of a large Rubik's Cube? What if Matt was deaf instead of blind? Death Devil is basically Daredevil if he had the Punisher's morals. He first appeared in Daredevil issue 380, which is interesting because season 2 episode 11 is titled .380. I wonder if this had anything to do with that. Over in Spider-Gwen's universe, Matthew Murdock is the Kingpin. In the Marvel universe where the year is 1602, Matt is a ballad composer, but also secretly an adventurer for hire whose senses were heightened after exploring a glowing cave as a kid. His Ultimate Universe version is relatively similar to Marvel Prime's Matt. There's a universe that merges Marvel and DC characters together, and Daredevil's version is Slade Murdock, who combines Matt Murdock's Daredevil and Deathstroke's Slade Wilson to create Dare the Terminator. She's a blind mercenary with enhanced senses and tactical combat skills. Matthew Murdock of Earth 9997 had his soul denied entry into the afterlife, becoming an immortal, devil-like figure. And Fear Devil used his heightened senses of taste to become a professional chef of Baron Sinister.
I'm not gonna lie to you. There's a lot more coming.
As for the comic-to-screen adaptations of stories that Daredevil has been a part of, I've already spoken about his first appearance Origin, but the 2003 movie also draws from Frank Miller's time writing Daredevil, including Elektra's involvement and the Man Without Fear series. The Netflix series also takes heavy inspiration from Frank Miller, including his Born Again run, and Kevin Smith's Guardian Devil was also used. As for the Defenders series, the story was largely an original idea, creating a narrative based on character ideas from the comics. Some other notable comic arcs Daredevil has been a part of include, but not limited to, Shadowland, where Daredevil becomes the leader of the Hand, The Devil in Cell Block D, where Matt is in prison and his identity is public, and Infinity War, where there's a war that goes
to infinity and beyond!
Hey, you want to hear some fun facts about Daredevil?
I do.
Here are some fun facts about Daredevil. Apparently the idea for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was inspired by Daredevil, specifically his origin of getting abilities from radioactive chemicals. Matt's favourite spot to look over the city is on top of the Chrysler Building, like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
For me, it was the top of the Chrysler Building.
Empire State.
In a 2014 comic, Matt claims to be left-handed, like his dad, but in the first issue, he writes with his right hand. However, this was before getting his powers, so maybe the radioactivity also switched which hand is dominant. You are very welcome for this piece of information. I know you were all desperately wondering which hand Matthew is prominent with. Thank you for the like and subscribe. If an actor were to portray his life story, Daredevil would like Alec Guinness to be cast. Speaking of actors, Ben Affleck and Charlie Cox aren't the only ones who have played the masked vigilante in live action. Rex Smith plays the character in the trial of the Incredible Hulk TV movie from 1989, where David Banner requires an attorney seeking out Matt. Due to not having the finances to pay Murdock, Banner agrees to help him incriminate Wilson Fisk. Prior to that Incredible Hulk series even starting, a Daredevil series was in the works in 1975, which was said to have the character star alongside Black Widow. Actor, writer, and musician Angie Bowie acquired the rights to both Matt and Nat, intending on starring as Black Widow with Ben Carruthers as Daredevil, but was unable to find a network to make the show, eventually leading to Angie losing the rights to those characters. Skye from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show also grew up at St. Agnes Orphanage. Maybe there was some crossover where both she and Matt were there at the same time. Jon Favreau has been in the same room as two different universes' Daredevils. In Ben Affleck's movie, he was Foggy, and in the MCU, he helped hire Matt to be Peter Parker's lawyer. Ben Affleck unintentionally method acted the role because he had to wear heavy-duty contact lenses that were almost impossible to see through. Before Ben Affleck was cast as Matt Murdock in the 2003 movie, Matt Damon, Vin Diesel, Guy Pearce, Edward Norton, and Colin Farrell were all considered for the role. As for Charlie Cox, he was Marvel's first choice for the Netflix series, suggested by comic writer and one of the show's executive producers, Joe Quesada.
So, the whole Kane thing is just an act?
Yep.
Matt Murdock's Daredevil is one of Marvel's most noteworthy characters. Even though we've seen the character put to screen many times, he's had significantly more stories told in the comics. While there are some differences from page to screen, there are a lot of similarities in both Ben Affleck's and Charlie Cox's versions. And like most Marvel characters who have appeared in many comics, they've had time to evolve and change, so the movie and series use this to their advantage and create a version that best reflects this in the modern day. So I think both these actors' portrayals do a great job to capture the essence and complexities of the character. However, if I were to pick one that I think is more comic accurate, I would have to say Charlie Cox, purely because he's had more time to evolve the character.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what your favourite movie, show, or comic featuring Daredevil is. And don't forget to absolutely obliterate those like, subscribe, and share buttons. I'm just kidding. Only do it with enough force that it registers. I don't want any of you breaking whatever device you're watching this on.